In the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, the crew of De Gratia spotted a sailing ship drifting in the distance. At first, there was nothing unusual about it, but as they approached, they noticed something strange. The ship appeared to be sailing with no one controlling it. They tried to make contact, but there was no response. So they boarded. What they found would become one of the world's enduring mysteries. The ship was empty. There was no captain, no crew, no passengers. Yet the vessel itself was still afloat and largely intact. This was the Mary Celeste. What happened to the people on board? To understand the mystery, we need to go back to November 1872. The Mary Celeste was a two-masted merchant ship preparing to cross the Atlantic from New York to Genoa, Italy. Its captain was Benjamin Briggs, an experienced sailor. He was traveling with his wife Sarah. 7 crew members were also aboard. In total, 10 people began the voyage. On November 7th, the Mary Celeste left New York Harbor. The ship carried a cargo of industrial alcohol and enough supplies for the journey ahead. First, everything appeared normal. The Mary Celeste sailed eastward across the Atlantic. But somewhere along the journey, something changed. On December 4th, the De Gratia encountered the Mary Celeste in the Atlantic. The vessel was behaving strangely. Its sails were still set, but its movements appeared uncontrolled. In other words, the ship had not been completely abandoned. It had been left behind under circumstances that were difficult to explain. The sailors boarded and searched the vessel carefully. They found the captain's cabin, they found clothing and personal possessions, they found navigation equipment and supplies. The last confirmed log entry was made on November 25th, and there was no recorded indication that the crew was about to abandon the ship. There was no sign of the captain, his family, or the crew. There was no obvious signs of a struggle, no bodies, no explanation. The crew of the Gratia began searching every part of the vessel, hoping to find some clue that could explain what had happened. But the deeper they searched, the stranger the mystery became. It was as though 10 people had simply vanished from the middle of the Atlantic. There was an unsettling sense that they had arrived moments too late. The vessel was still afloat, the sails still set, and much of its cargo remained exactly where it had been. And perhaps most strangely, the ship's lifeboat was gone. And that missing lifeboat became one of the most important clues. If the crew had voluntarily left the Mary Celeste, why? And if they have left in an emergency, what emergency could have been serious enough for them to abandon a ship that was still capable of sailing? Over the years, several explanations have been proposed. One possibility was piracy. Perhaps the crew had encountered another vessel and had been forced to leave, but the evidence doesn't fit neatly. The cargo was largely untouched, and there was no convincing evidence of a pirate attack. Another theory suggested mutiny. Perhaps tensions had developed between the captain and his crew, but again, there was little evidence to support the kind of violence that would accompany such an event. Then there was another possibility: the cargo. The Mary Celeste was carrying hundreds of barrels of alcohol. Some of the barrels were later found to have leaked. Could fumes from the cargo have caused concerns about fire or explosion? Could Captain Briggs have believed that the ship was in immediate danger? Perhaps he ordered everyone into the lifeboats temporarily. If so, they may have intended to remain close to the Mary Celeste, but the Atlantic is enormous. We have theories, we have clues, but we don't have the answer.